Wait till your enemy's close, that you may take your best shot. Let her see you, that you may best see her.
Welcome back to the Sandy Trail. We are on the second to last review for episode 2 of season 2 of Sanditon. Bear with me if I sound a bit sick. I don't feel the greatest, but I really want to continue these reviews, and I'm feeling the holiday spirit. It's after Thanksgiving right now, and I'm like, December gonna come by really, really quick. We started off with that scene. We will go over a few more scenes from the ball and then the day after. But first thing first, we watched this scene of Hona Lennox and Charlotte dancing together. When I first watched this episode, especially the dance scene between Charlotte and Lennox, I thought it was casual. I didn't really feel like anything romantic about it. I know he is really interested in her, but she's not on the same page with him when it comes to feelings. She was very comfortable with him, a very casual, friendly dance, nothing more than that from what I picked up on watching these scenes.
Perhaps that's true. I should be more open with her. Then hopefully I shall have no need to employ the bayonet.
He's giving her an advice on how to handle the 2 kids that she's being a governess to, and particularly to Augusta, and he's using military terms while giving an advice to Charlotte. I thought it was very sweet of him. He really wanted to help her out and give an advice, but at the same time, like, he hears enough, like, he really likes her as a friend and wants to help her out.
I suppose that toast was for my benefit.
Don't flatter yourself. It's for my own amusement.
And I think it's just the beginning of Georgiana, like, really intrigued by what Lockhart did at dinner, the speech that he made. Something from that speech that he made, still something inside of Georgiana, and she's like literally walking up to him. They alone, private, usually that's not the ideal situation back in those days. Like, usually there's a chaperone around or someone watching from afar.
And was it worth it, given it has earned you the contempt of almost everyone in the room?
Almost everyone? Who's the exception?
Who is the exception? One, Georgiana. Second, probably would be Arthur.
I made a decision not so long ago not to care what anyone thinks of me. It was enormously liberating. I prefer to live my life on my own terms, outside the narrow confines of polite society.
Then the conversation got serious, with that serious transition from Lockhart. He started talking about himself and how he viewed himself against society, what society expected people to do, how to behave, how to act, and how to live life. And he's enjoying his single life. Like, he's a free man, the freedom to express himself, not only through art, but the words that he speaks and how he sees life through his lens. And I think at the same time, he's trying to convince Georgiana, encourage her, like, to do the same thing. He's like, hey, you know, like, I'm doing my own gig. I don't hear what other people say or think of me. Like, this is my life. Like, I should be in control of my own happiness. And I think what he sees in Georgiana is what happened to him in the past. And I think he relates to her in that, and he hasn't, like, opened up to that until now. And at the same time, he's like, you know, don't make the same mistakes like I did. Like, don't be stuck in that time and space, you know, where you can be free. Like, you are at that age, that stage in life where you can decide your destiny, basically. And I think he's trying to tell that indirectly by sharing his own life stories, his views on life.
I highly recommend it. Then again, it takes a brave lamb to wander from the flock.
Interesting, her last name is Lamb, right? Miss Lamb. But he definitely talking about her in that very last sentence of his another speech, I should call it. But it's just a way of him to motivate her to go out of society, like go onto her own path and make her own decision, including, who to marry and have control over her future. Interesting conversation to watch again, and I think this will catapult. I think this will force them to talk more with each other. I think Georgiana really got a deep interest in him after the dinner speech and this conversation right now. In the last video, I think, when Mary had a conversation with Georgiana about how Mary was disappointed that Georgiana declined another proposal, Mary like, what are you doing? And Georgiana like, why you guys pressure me, to get married so quickly? And Lockhart interrupted the private conversation, and he told that Mary was a bit uneasy, like she didn't really see Lockhart as a eligible single guy to marry Georgiana. I mean, like, if she did like Lockhart, she would have said it right there and then, like, hey, how about you date Lockhart? Like, give him a chance, right? But she didn't. And now this scene, she watching them a bit, and she did not look happy at all. She had something against Lockhart.
I am trying to follow Georgiana's advice and be more reserved, but it is so hard when I am with him.
Try not to fall too fast, Alison.
Can't you feel from my heartbeat that it's just too late for such advice?
Charlotte's right. I'm thinking the same thing. Like, Alison, like, don't fall for this guy very quickly. I mean, you really don't know him that well, And from the audience perspective, we already know that Captain Harder is already lied to her about one thing, poetry.
Edward, I intend to ask your colonel to join me for tea tomorrow. I wish to show him my brother's medals.
I'm sure he'd be delighted, Aunt.
And it would also provide an opportunity for him to give his unvarnished impression of you.
Edward in season 2, interesting storyline. Like, in season 1, I thought, like, he would be gone for good, like, he not get him back, but of course they use his character, like, as a weapon, like, a way of to have a bad character, a bad man in the storyline for season 2, like an enemy, so of course he came back. He trying to use the military as a way to present himself, to show himself to Lady Denham and Esther, like, I'm a better man now, I'm in the military, I'm learning new things, like, there's a serious job, like, I'm taking it seriously, and his boss is, like, praising him. Of course, these two ladies are skeptical. They're like, there's no way that Edward, changed for the best. It's really hard to change a guy, right? So it would take a lot of work and trust for Edward to prove himself that he's worthy of their forgiveness.
Edward, might I persuade you to dance?
Sister, I would
Not with me. I'd rather dance barefoot on broken glass. Miss Hankins.
Edward, like, oh, we so physically close to one another right now, and Esther, like, kind of, like, gave him, like, a false signal, like, she just switched, like, oh, no, you're not dancing with me, dance with Miss Hankins. And Edward didn't say no, he didn't argue. I was surprised at that the first time around. I'm like, no way. But of course he wanted to have a good image, right, in front of Esther and Lady Denham.
Which of them is this designed to humiliate?
Neither. It's to repay Miss Hankins for her kindness, and to see how far Edward would go to prove he's a human being.
And that's just a thoughtful gesture that she did toward Miss Hankins without her knowing that Esther set Edward up for that purpose. It's really nice that she used Edward in her plan to return the gesture to Miss Hankins for helping her about telling her about that midwife.
Can I interest you in a nightcap, Mr. Parker? I have a rather good port wine in my studio.
Oh, well, I adore port wine.
This is a bit interesting though. Like, he literally asked Arthur to hang out for late night tonight after the ball. It's kind of like rubbing it in front of Georgiana's face. Georgiana is friends with Arthur, like they're best buddies, and Georgiana like, oh, okay, you're not inviting me, like, we're not gonna say anything, like, we're not gonna talk. I wonder how the conversation ended though, earlier at the ball, but interesting move that Lockhart made. Kind of like, oh, I'm stealing your best friend for the night.
Alison. Thank you, Captain. I've had the most wonderful evening.
As have I. Worthy of Cooper.
And it's nice of Georgiana being like her sidekick in all of this, but as a friend, you know, you might want to watch out for him, you know, like question in your mind, like, if my friend falling for him too quickly, like, should I warn her?
Frizzy, you must help me. Miss Haywood, she is a woman of refinement. Poetry. You know such things. Please.
Did her go well? Did her go wrong too? That's a huge risk that Harder is taking to ask Fraser for help. Basically, like, Fraser will be like dating Allison from behind the scene, if that makes sense. Yeah, so this is not a great start for Harder, like, you know, start a relationship with Eli. And, you know, that question if she's gonna continue the relationship with more lies, like, yeah, it's not a good thing.
Why? As a friend and fellow officer, Declan. Thank you. I'll be forever in your debt.
I like how Fraser looked over to Allison, not only because Harder talking about Allison, but at the same time he had those like googly eyes on Allison because he know right then and then that him and Allison does have some things in common, one being poetry. But on the other hand, it sucks because Harder is the one that Allison is interested in so far. So it's kind of like having those double agent, you know. You have Harder, but you have the brain of Fraser.
Miss Hayward,
Thank you for your advice on military strategy.
I hope it proves useful. Let me know if you wish to borrow a cannon.
I'm not sure Mr. Colburn would sanction that.
Colburn, you say?
Yes. Why, do you know him?
Only by reputation.
They have like this banter between them, using military terms. I think it's cute, but if you know what happened, yeah, I don't root for Lennox and Charlotte. But so far, like, it's good, but interesting enough though, like his tone, his facial expressions changed when she mentioned Mr. Colburn, and then you know, he asked about him, and Charlotte, of course, she picked up on things quickly enough. She's like, oh, do you know him? Like, you know, Mr. Colburn is still like a mystery to Charlotte. Like, she's still trying to get to know the family and get to know him a little bit more as a boss. And Lennox, you know, of course, like, he's not gonna tell Charlotte everything that he knows about Mr. Colburn. It's probably something that he keeps to himself. So he kind of like saved her butt by telling her he knows him only by reputation.
I bid you a good evening.
Good evening.
So it seemed that maybe a good amount of people know Mr. Heybourne, but there's still some mystery lies underneath that, and I think Charlotte's still trying to figure Mr. Heybourne out as a person. He seemed to be like tough boss, right? Everyone had their own stories, their own struggles, and we'll see if Charlotte will find that breaking point where he might open up to her, or maybe not. But that look on the Lennox at the very end of this scene, that definitely tells us that he has something really big against Mr. Heybourne.
I wondered if there was anyone who caught your eye at dinner last night. Unlike Alison, I don't swoon at the sight of a soldier.
I see that, Mary using her tricks in trying to start a conversation about Lockhart with Georgiana, like trying to like say, I don't like him, but, you know, what's going on with you two?
It's not a soldier you were sitting next to. I maintain my first impression of Mr. Lockhart. He's all conceit and affectation.
Georgiana had to, like, protect herself and assure her, like, hey, there's nothing going on. But I think she lied a little bit. I think after what happened at the ball, I feel like she got, like, a deeper interest in Lockhart, but she's not gonna tell anyone about that.
I'd hoped you'd find yourself sitting next to someone handsome and eligible. No more talk of marriage. I beg you. I've had my fill of suitors. If any man is to request an audience, you were to decline.
That is definitely coming from Lockhart, what he said to her at the ball, and like, you know, make your own choices, don't hear what other people say or think. So that definitely coming from the motivation that Lockhart gave to her the night before.
If and when I marry, it will be on my terms. Mine and mine alone.
So she already settled. She's like, I'm gonna make my own choices in regard to my future, in my future marriage. Mary's like, what? Like, you really gonna do this, Georgiana? But it's her life, right? And I think she should have the power and control to decide what she wants in her life and in her future.
These past months, he has proved himself an exemplary officer. Honourable, courageous, disciplined.
Yes, so you said at the mess dinner.
Esther, of course, doesn't want him there, but here we are, a four-way conversation, and Lennox is, again, praising Edward of how great he is as a person and as a soldier. Yeah, it's just like repeating again and again, and Lady Dunham like, yeah, and like I had enough of hearing that. The ladies are still skeptical about Edward right now.
I know familial relations between you have been strained in the past, but when he joined up, Captain Denham spoke of a desire to return, and nothing I've seen since has caused me to doubt his sincerity.
Well, Edward can be faking it to Lennox too, right? Like, you never know. Esther is not falling for it. She's like, I had enough of this. Like, I know who my stepbrother is and what he is capable of. Again, like, it really sucks that he's back in Sanditon on purpose just to annoy his aunt and his stepsister.
I have known love, Miss Markham.
And let me guess, he ignored your every simpering advance.
Charlotte just, like, bluntly started talking about love and how she found love with someone. And it was very natural of her to do so. Like, usually it's hard to start a conversation about something very personal, you know, and, like, share it with someone that you really don't know, especially a kid or someone younger than you.
No. I was loved in return, but circumstances conspired against us. Then he died.
So anything about death, like someone died, it's just something inside of Augusta. You can see that the way she reacted after Charlotte said that the person that she loved died. And it just showed that Augusta can relate to that on some levels, even though, you know, the person that died in her life were her parents, not an actual lover.
Miss Markham, our lives may seem worlds apart, But I know what it means to grieve.
The beginning of these two sharing a relationship and sharing a common story and just understanding each other on a better level. So they're like the beginning, and Charlotte finally stepping her foot down and telling Augusta, like, hey, like, I don't know what you're doing and why you giving me attitude, but, you know, let's try to be friends and, you know, find something that we can talk about and relate to at the same time. And it's a big thing though, like talking about grief and death. It's a big topic. It can be very emotional and very vulnerable, you know, for someone to share that with someone else. And Charlotte was very confident and brave to do so. And it just shows how much she has recovered, how much she has like processed. Like if she wasn't ready to talk about this, like she wouldn't have said anything about it to Augusta. It just showed that Charlotte was ready to talk about it, and she really doesn't really talk much about it until now with Augusta. And it just showed that how much she really wants to make this work with Augusta, have this guardian-child relationship, and just to be there for Augusta and let her know that she's not alone.
We are nothing alike, Miss Hayward.
You can definitely tell that her parents' death still bother her. Like she's still in that grief process. It's been under 2 years, I think, a year and something months, since she's been hostage in her uncle's house. So it's still a bit new to her. Like, you know, grief takes time, right? And it's very overwhelming to process grief and move on and just to continue life without the people that you love that, you know, died before you. So Augusta is definitely, you know, struggling in that area. And again, she really doesn't have anyone to talk to. Death, grief is something that Mr. Heybourne doesn't support in talking about it openly within the household, including like the staff.
Tell me something. Your parents. A happy memory, perhaps.
Instead of arguing or punishing Augusta, Charlotte continued the conversation and asked about a happy memory of her parents.
I used to play for them. Lively tunes that would make everyone laugh.
You can tell from that story that the house was used to be lively and have a bunch of noises, musical tune, that warm environment. But now it seems the house like it's cold and like deserted, like not a lot of happy sound coming from the house, if that makes sense.
They would sing. I could play for you, if you'd like.
To Charlotte, it's a wonderful idea.
My Aunt Lucy's spinet in the drawing room. We can unlock it.
I should very much like that.
If you know the episode already, like that look on Augusta's face at the very end of the scene, you know there's something up with her. She has a game plan against Charlotte once again. We'll talk more about that in the next video. I'm gonna end it here. Give the video a like. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Comment down below if anything. It's been really fun covering for season 2. Here, wait for the next video in episode 3. I think I'm gonna build up even more as we go on. See you soon. Bye.